Right, hey guys, welcome to Project Metal Music's YouTube channel, and with your host Elion, and we are here with Phil and Yola Styles of Final Coil. So, guys, introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Phil Styles. I'm the guitarist and singer with Final Coil, and occasionally I get to play synthesizers and make them go wee.
And I'm Yola. I'm playing bass for last 10 years with this band, and also I'm doing designs and photography.
It sounded like you were about to say I've been playing for 10 years with this damn band. You're not getting out of
it. I've been playing flute as well in the meantime.
Oh yeah, you did actually play. Yeah. You played flute on one song or two?
Two songs.
Two songs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How quickly you forget.
Yeah.
So, let's dive into some questions. So, as kids, what were you listening to?
The first thing I ever bought with my own money in a tiny record shop in Rugby was Duran Duran 7 and the Ragged Tiger, which came out in, I think, about 1983, although I bought it a little bit after that. But what changed my life, we kind of hinted at this when we were talking to you before the thing started, was my stepdad at the time was like a part-time DJ. And he used to go out and do like school discos and stuff. And he had all these boxes of vinyl in the garage. And as a kid, I'd be going through, and you'd find the stuff that you knew. So you'd find, again, Duran Duran or Queen, Status Quo. And one day I came across this small box of vinyl that was kept to the side. And in there were kind of the records that weren't so regularly played. And there was one that was blood red and had a picture of the devil on the front. And it was Iron Maiden and Run to the Hills. And I had no idea who Iron Maiden were, but the vinyl was blood red and the artwork was cool. So I figured it was something that had to be awesome. So I kind of carried it upstairs to my little record player, and I put it on. And from that point on, my life has been on a kind of steady downward slope. Not that I'm blaming Iron Maiden for this, because I'm pretty sure there's a lawsuit in there somewhere, but you know.
So that is how you started.
Yeah, that's how I started.
Well, with me it was a little bit different, because in Poland, at that time, we didn't have, of course, CDs. Everything was either vinyl or tapes. And I started to actually listen Queen when I was 6, and it is thanks to one of my cousins. So before that, they were very songs for children, and then first rock music which I heard, it was Queen, and I absolutely loved this. We were watching also on MTV videos, which for me, 7, 8 years old girl, they were just totally out of the blue. And then followed this, we were watching lots of clips and video clips, like Nirvana, and that moved into the grunge actually. And then I started listening punk in Poland as well. And I was playing in the punk bands as well in between that, and that actually, thanks to maybe this, I decided that I want to play instruments, so I went to music school and then follow kind of classical way of learning music, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So, who basically got you into music? As some of you, both of you said that it was something to do with a family member of some description who actually got you into music.
No, not really for me. I mean, my mum was always very supportive, and she got me playing. The first instrument I played was the recorder, which I think is kind of everybody's first instrument. And then I graduated to the clarinet. And I played the clarinet for about 4 years, and I also played a bit of the oboe. I kind of enjoyed it, but it wasn't really my thing. I mean, I still listen to classical music today, but I never felt connected to it. And then when Nirvana came out, I would say that they were very life-altering. Like Iron Maiden felt untouchable. They felt like these kind of gods in like big hair and spandex, and they had these huge stages. And Guns N' Roses were very much the same thing. But when Nirvana came along, they had that kind of like punk authenticity, and you kind of felt that anyone could have a shot at picking up an instrument, trying it out. And I remember when It was actually a Nitro that really kind of hit me. I'd heard them before, but it was Milk It on a Nitro, which is just the coolest song. It's got this amazing kind of like sloppy, off-kilter lead, and then this insanely heavy riff. And I just thought that is one of the coolest things I've ever heard. So I picked up a guitar, I think about the age of 15. And again, you know, like I say, my mum was, she didn't push me in that direction, but once I went down that path, she was really, really supportive, and she made me a deal. She was like, look, you know, if you stick with this, you can have this fairly crappy guitar, but if you stick with it, we'll buy you a better one. And it's like, okay, right, I'm going to do this. And I sat down, and I had a whole bunch of music videos. I think I had Nirvana Unplugged, and I had Alice in Chains Unplugged, and I had Guns N' Roses, the Use Your Illusion videos. And I just sat there, and this is VHS, you know, like pausing it and then trying to get past that little fuzzy line. So what chord are they playing there? Like, where do I put my fingers? And that's basically how I kind of went down the process of learning the guitar and getting into music. So I think it was very much like what I heard. You know, I was kind of like self-motivated, but I was very much supported by my mum.
In terms of like who got me into music, well, I suppose my cousins. You know, I'm coming from quite like artistic family, and I have few members of my like further family who playing all sorts of instruments. So I have, you know, people who playing guitars, they playing bass, they playing violins, you know. So although my parents never wanted me to play actually anything, they always were saying that, oh, you need to have career, you know, you need to learn, study. But music wasn't really like they kind of option number one. But then actually they did agree that I can go to some lessons, private lessons to do a piano. And then I was pushing to go actually to music school, where I was studying actually flute and more like classical kind of music, which I enjoyed. And that led me actually to playing later on also jazz in kind of later on, which I think is really interesting actually. Why? Because my kind of taste is quite broad. Yeah, that's the word. Yes, and I kind of enjoy that. You know, it's every day of the year can be different. It depends on the weather, and if the sun is shining, you listen this, and if it's November, you listen doom metal. You know, it's just like it doesn't need to be just one genre. You know, that's for me anyway. It doesn't need to be one genre all the time. You know, I like to kind of listen this and that. As far as there is something which will catch my attention, you know, in music, and it's not necessarily actually technicality. I've been in those music schools, you know, I've seen people actually like always competing against each other, you know, and it's not my thing really at all. I think it's a bad vibe generally. Although I do admire people who are spending a lot of time trying to learn those instruments and do this like really, really well. But I think there is more about the feelings and something which comes out of you really, which you want to express in music.
Yeah. So you sort of like touch on the question I was going to ask, but who actually said who actually inspired you to actually turn around and say, "Oh, I want to play the bass. Oh, I want to play the guitar. Or anything stuff like that."
So yeah, it was the first step was definitely Nirvana. They were an absolute sort of game changer back in the early 1990s, and I think for a lot of people of our kind of age group, I guess, you know, Nirvana were huge, but it was like the scene that kind of grew up around them as well. I love the fact that because I've always been a physical music fan, and if you go through the liner notes of stuff like Nirvana and Alice in Chains and Mudhoney and Soundgarden, they're always recommending all the other bands on the scene. And I always thought that was really, really cool. So like I'm sat here at the moment wearing a Sonic Youth t-shirt. And, you know, once I got past the immediate rush of Nirvana, it was very much kind of Sonic Youth. And the way that they tried out different tunings. And again, I think, you know, Yola kind of touched on this. A lot of the bands that I like the most, I've got, like Yola, I've got a very broad range of taste, but I think the bands that always stick with me the most are the bands that are the ones that are honest and they play with feeling rather than with any sort of particular technicality. And, you know, I'm not saying that in any way to disparage, you know, bands like Sonic Youth are absolutely amazing, but they didn't focus on, you know, playing exactly this note in exactly this place. And one of the cool things about them was that every time you saw them live, the music, it would be the same song and you'd recognize the beats, but at the same time, it could be played completely differently in all sorts of kind of cool and original ways. So, yeah, I wouldn't, I think, yeah, Nirvana are definitely the starting point, but I wouldn't sort of point a finger and go, no, that was what I wanted to be, because it wasn't that kind of influence. It was more, it was the community spirit that sat at the heart of that scene. And it was the general kind of vibe that it was something that anyone could do. It didn't matter whether you're male, female, didn't matter what race you were, it didn't matter where you were from. You know, if you had that kind of passion, then you'd be kind of welcome in that kind of scene. And that's something that I thought was really, really important then. And here we are kind of 20 odd years later, and I think it's really important now.
Oh gosh, I feel it's well, just gone.
Are you trying to say that I just wouldn't shut up?
Oh gosh. Well, with the instrument, you know, I don't know. Well, it's hard to say, because I started playing, you know, like piano, and that was thanks to one of my music teachers. You know, I thought that it was very interesting what she was doing, and I thought, well, I want to do the same and be able to play. And it was like really self-motivation, I suppose, you know, that I was able to play, you know, like Christmas carols and things like this to start with. And then I moved to different instruments. So in the meantime, maybe over the years, you know, I pick up few instruments. Flute is definitely my kind of prime ones. Although in the Final Coil, I'm playing bass, and it was just pure coincidence, I think, because guys were looking for basses and the gig was coming and they didn't have anyone, and they asked, well, do you want to learn a few songs and play this gig with us? And I thought, well, I will try. So we'll see. And yes, I did, and we played, and all was really well, you know, and I enjoyed it. And that is how I kind of joined the band, really, you know. They stopped looking for someone.
Yeah, we just once you have someone who's playing bass, you don't let them go. I mean, you know, we investigated all sorts of things, chains, shackles. In the end, we just went for a contract signed in blood, but, you know.
No.
So, what other bands were you in, if any?
I mean, Final Coil has always been, for me, the kind of mothership, because it started out many years ago before it became like a real thing as like a solo project. But the first band I was ever in was at school, and it was a band called Endora, which was the brainchild of a friend of mine called Matt Law. And I was in that band with him and a guy called Tim Harris. He's still one of my closest friends to this day. And we used to, you know, a typical kind of school band. We used to jam on really battered equipment, far too loud. Most kind of our events would end with one or the other of us with our head in the bass drum, trying to make as much feedback as possible. And the songwriting in that band was split kind of 50-50 between me and Matt. And it was really fun, you know. I mean, it's like I got a complete taste for it, even though we never really did anything of merit. We played a couple of school concerts. We did a couple of concerts in pubs a couple of years after we left, and it was really great. And then there was I was in a band called Fudgy Like, which was a comedy kind of metal band in the vein of Mr. Bungle. That we did. That was me, and again it was no, not Tim. It was Martin, Michael Martin, and a friend of mine called Steve. And essentially, we came up with the idea while spending our nights sat in our student house drinking too much wine or beer. And we came up with this great idea that songs would be more interesting if we recorded them without the other person hearing what the parts were. And an interesting failure rate with that. But anyway. And then Final Coil was going throughout that time as a sort of solo thing, and Rich kind of joined me at that point. And then I moved out to Poland. Final Coil kind of went on hiatus, and I played with a Polish prog band called Metanoia, with a guy called Tomek Wulski, really, really talented bassist, and his friend Michał. And that was great. I got to do, it was mostly Tomek songs, although we did a couple of mine as well. And I also played briefly with a kind of thrash metal band called Hell Brigade, who very talented group of guys in Starachowice, where I was working at. I was only really filling in for the vocalist who was away for a period of time, but that was really, really fun too. But you know, Final Coil is always the thing that I've kind of done, and you know, that's where, you know, sort of the music that means the most to me, I guess, is it sort of comes out. And the other projects that I've done have been really, really fun, but for a variety of different reasons, weren't necessarily things that I wanted to do for any great length of time. I always felt that Final Coil would be the thing that I would return to. But Yola here has had some success. You did the big band in Stara, and
Yes, well, my experience with the band and playing with people, with all sorts of different people, are kind of varies because of taste, which I have in music. So, I've started, with like classical music, as I said, and I was playing with the orchestra. And then I moved into a jazz band, which I also enjoyed for a few years, and we recorded a few records in Poland. I was a teenager at that time. And in the meantime, I was playing in those punk bands. So yes, it was like overlapping into another one. So it's hard to say really actually which band I was like the longest. I think probably actually Final Coil now, 10 years, and on bass. Yeah, but yes, I was also playing as guests here and there because I enjoyed kind of join bands and I like kind of do favors, I suppose, and bring something new to the music which someone else creating, But I'm definitely not the person who will be like at the front, of the line. I'm not in the center of attention. I just don't like this. I like to kind of be somewhere aside and doing my little bit,
Yeah, we spent a lot of time convincing Yola that she couldn't play behind the drum kit.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. So that brings on to what has Final Coil been up to, especially over this last year.
Oh wow. Well, I mean, we actually were really well placed when all this kind of chaos kicked off because just at the tail end of 2019, we went into a studio in London and we did 3 live tracks, which were just re-recordings of things that we'd done previously. We did 2 songs off our debut album, off Persistence and Memory, You Waste My Time and Spider Feet, and we did 1 track off the second album, which was Empty Handed. And it was our idea that we were going to kind of put these out as a video and also as a cassette, because we wanted to do like a live EP in the vein of the old like the old cassette singles that you used to buy back in the 1980s, where you get like a studio track and then there'd be like a bunch of cool B-sides. And we sort of thought, if we went into the studio and we did something really kind of with good production but still live and raw, it would be kind of like the radio sessions that you got from John Peel, and it would just be like a really cool thing for fans. So so just as kind of the lockdown kicked off, that was kind of queued up, ready to come out. So that actually sort of helped keep a bit of momentum because it gave us something that we could kind of release over that period. Now, what's kind of less known, and I guess I've got to be a bit careful about how much I talk about this, but at the same time, I'd actually written the 3rd album during the mixing for the 2nd album, because I tend to get very excited. So if we're mixing an album, it's like, okay, well, those songs are kind of done, but I want to do more. So I got very excited, and I wrote, actually, it's a direct sequel to The World We Left Behind for Others. So musically and thematically, it's a direct sequel. So the idea is that the 2 play together. The first notes you hear on the new record are the last notes you heard on the last record. It's all very pretentious, great fun. But so I'd written that, and we were actually booked to go into the studio more or less as lockdown started. So we were in a studio that I won't disclose just yet, but here in the UK for a change, because the previous 2 were recorded in Italy. And we were in the studio doing the drums as the kind of lockdown kind of rolled over the country. But of course, when you're in a studio, your phone's off, your internet's off. It's like a bunker anyway. There's no daylight. The producer was sleeping in the live room. None of us knew what was going on. We didn't find out until we came out of the studio, like after about 4 days, blinking into the sunlight, that there were no toilet rolls anywhere in the country, and that we weren't allowed to leave the house. So we had these drum tracks down. We had this great producer, and we couldn't go back. So we sat on our hands for about 2 months. And then the lockdown broke, I think, in June. It was like mid-June. And we wrote to the studio. We're like, right, we need to get back in. And thank goodness we did, because we went back in. We spent 10 days in the studio. We finished we got all the tracking done, but nothing mixed. We left the studio, and I think about 3 days after that, they locked the damn, well, not the country, they locked Leicester, which is where we are, down again. And we basically were in varying degrees of lockdown from then until January. So actually we've recorded a complete album. We got a great producer on board. We recorded a complete album. It was mixed and mastered in December into January. And we're now looking at what we're going to do with it. At some point very soon, we hope to be sort of sharing more details about that. So that was done. And because we were locked down, I got excited while we were mixing the third album, and you can probably guess where this story is going. And I wrote the fourth album. So we actually have demos pretty much complete for a fourth album, which is a breakout. It's a different story and a different kind of theme, and also quite different musically, I think. But I also, during the same period, recorded a solo album, which is the follow-up to a little EP I put out last year called The Anchorite. And for that, I did, because it was kind of lockdown, I roped in a whole bunch of guests, and I was like, look, we're locked down, you're at home, I'm at home, maybe we could do something. So I gathered together, I think it's like 8 people, and I've recorded this album, which is the follow-up to The Anchorite, and that is coming out, that's September the 17th, through Trepanation Records. And we'll be revealing both the track listing and the guests on that then, or somewhere in the run up to that. There's been a huge amount kind of going on, and actually, now I think about it, we've also been doing an EP, like a Final Coil EP of kind of like electronic and sort of chilled out reinterpretations of older songs, just because it was something like that Richard and I and Yoda, we could kind of kick back and forth virtually. And actually, I was mixing 2 of the tracks on that today.
Yeah, but of course it was difficult because we haven't seen each other, with the band, only really for the studio, and we had to practice, separate for recording in June. So that was difficult really, because we did practice songs, but you need to be really prepared really, really well. So we were practicing at home and then seeing each other, on the Zoom meetings and things like that. And really, since last year, we had just few band practices, really just few, because we were unable to do this whatsoever, So that would be interesting this year.
So like sat here with metronomes and earphones. But it's been a really, really, in many ways, it's been a really positive year, despite the fact that we've not been able to get out and play live. I would say that we've made really, really good use of the time to create more things, and we've just got basically this kind of wealth of material. But all that said, we haven't really had a chance to tour the world we left behind for others as much as we would have liked. We played some really good gigs in 2019. We were getting ready to play a series of really good gigs in 2020, and of course the world stopped, and now every band is in the same situation. There's not that many venues really kind of ready to take on the challenge of booking stuff, knowing that it could stop at any moment. So we're being quite careful about sort of getting ready to kind of come back to the live stage. If all goes well, we do have a concert in Leicester booked for mid-September, I think it is, which we're really excited about, and that's with our friends in the Medea project and Igoda. That'll be a really, really cool gig, because we're going to set it up to sort of be a bit of an event. But of course, every day the news changes. We hope that everything is going to go very positively forward, but we're not going to bet on it just yet. So we're just taking our time to get ready, and we want to come back out, and really we'd love to play some shows where we focus on the second album material, really, just to give it a chance for a good airing, because we played a lot of shows around Persistence and Memory, and we really we played a lot of great shows around that, and then the world we left behind for others kind of got left out because the entire world kind of went into lockdown. And I'm not saying it's conspiracy against us, but it did feel a little bit personal.
You sort of like touched on going to be trying to get a gig, play a gig in September. Are you going to be trying to set up other gigs if it's all being well?
Yeah, as soon, you know, as things continue to open up and as we see things being positive, you know, we love to go out and play live. You know, it's the core of our band is being able to go on stage and play live. You know, I'm one of those kind of geeky people. I love to be in the studio, but it's not the same nevertheless. And you know, of course, we've missed it, and we really want to get back on the stage. So I mean, the hope is that sort of September, October, November, we'll be looking to find venues sort of up and down the country where we can go and play and make people's ears ring, because that's what we like to do.
So you said would you be touring the UK, or would you want to go further afield, like into Europe or over to the US or to Canada?
We've always wanted to travel, and I mean, of course, we recorded both the debut album and The World We Left Behind for Others. Both of those were recorded in Italy. And we've had some really lovely feedback from right across Europe. We've had some great reviews from a variety of different European countries. There was a lot of support from Portugal, strangely, and a lot of support from Italy. We've had some really nice reviews in Poland. And I think, you know, my experience of living out in Europe is that the gig scene is absolutely amazing. Particularly in Poland, the audiences are just phenomenal. The venues are really cool. And yeah, if it's possible to do that, then of course we will. Right now, with the borders kind of, you know, opening and closing regularly, and, you know, let's be honest, there's a lot of uncertainty around Brexit, with, you know, what you can and can't do and what the costs are going to be. I think it right now would probably be a little bit precipitous to try and arrange something internationally. You know, the UK definitely. We want to move around. We want to go. I want to go down to Bournemouth, which is, you know, kind of the part of the country I'm from. We're very keen to go back to Sheffield, which always had a fantastic gig scene and was always very welcoming to us. Manchester as well. We always got a great reception up there. So yeah, we definitely want to try and get out as far as we can right around the UK, and internationally, you know, hopefully that will come. But, you know, who knows what the situation is right now.
Yeah. So, have you, with like the recording the new album, this for the third album? Is it the third album? You just written?
Yeah, it's the third album. Yeah, that's right.
Are you going to be like producing some new material, some new merchandise, or to actually promote the to help promote the album?
Yeah, good question, and absolutely. I mean, we're huge on physical product. We've always made a real point of getting people to do cool artwork. The guy who did the first two albums, and who did the third, in fact, is a chap called Andy Pilkington, who you may have come across in your travels. He runs a company called Very Metal Art. Very talented, really nice guy. And when he did the Persistence and Memory artwork, it kind of blew us away, because we didn't give him a brief of any description. We sent him the album, and we said, look, you know, we're looking for something that's going to be kind of ethereal and dreamlike. Here's the music. What do you think? And he disappeared off. He said, oh, I'll be doing it on this date. And we thought, okay. Didn't hear anything back from him, and then just this picture arrived. I was like, do you think this will do? And we kind of looked at it and our collective jaws dropped. So we had this great art, and then he did a very cool atmospheric picture for the World We Left Behind for Others, which really captured the kind of themes of the album. You know, this sort of these two people looking back on their lives and how that had impacted the world that they lived in today. And he's done a very good job for the forthcoming album. But I think more than that, I would like to commission probably a different artist as well, to come up with some sort of different interpretation for some t-shirts, because I know that fans really like t-shirts with kind of cool different designs on. And that's something we haven't really explored so much to date. You know, we sort of relied on the album artwork because it has been so good and Andy's done such a great job, but I think it's nice to have some options. So yeah, there'll definitely be some t-shirts, there'll be CDs, we hope vinyl. That remains to be seen. Cassettes, almost certainly in one form or another. We had great fun doing cassettes. I never thought in my life I'd be making a cassette for my band, but we did some for Convicted of the Right, and there were some demo cassettes for The World We Left Behind for others. We've got patches already, and I'm sure there'll be other things that we can find. We're always talking about different things that we can do, but it's trying to, I suppose for us, it's trying to have some really cool merch that people can have and enjoy. At the same time, we don't kind of want to get into kind of ephemera that just kind of gets, picked up, used once, and then thrown to the bottom of the drawer, never to be seen again. So it's kind of like, trying to sort of toe that line. I've got some great Pink Floyd box sets that are packed full of marbles and nylon scarves, and I think that I'd like to keep the focus more on the music than the marbles, but but yeah, we really like the artistic side, and Yola here has done some great art for us over the time, hasn't he?
I've done a little bit, yes, for the previous kind of EPs, but I do also look after like Instagram, and I like to do photos during like video shoots and things like this. So those, I think, are very important for fans to be able to actually see how everything happened, because I'm always very curious how all of those videos coming along, and what the bands are doing. So yes, last video we do a recording, it's just the whole day, like full on recording, but I'm there with that camera, pretty much attached to my face, so I captured really good moments, and I'm really looking forward to share with everyone, to show everyone how everything kind of went, because it's really interesting, for me as an artist, also that visual side, just and be able to share with people, be like more personal, so it's not really like official, but there is like this personal touch, definitely.
Yeah. That's a good point. We did a music video during lockdown as well. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
We went and filmed a music video.
Yes.
I really should have remembered that, I suppose.
Yes, you should.
Getting old, what it is.
Yeah, I know that feeling. So, Yola, you've taken some like photos of through the progression of through the process of recording albums. Would you be up to doing a little book of photos and saying this is what we from the third album, from start to finish, to actually putting like all the photos into a book, and actually say this is the journey from when you put the pen to paper to the actual finished product, to actually have a book, a photographic journey of how the third album came about.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting idea. We were talking with Philip about actually making like books, with my photos and our artwork, actually. And I hope it will actually come along, although I know it's going to take forever, because obviously, with the band and full-time job, it is very difficult to find, even like little time to do something. So yes, I like doing artwork. I love doing photos. But also I have like maybe hour half every day just to do a little bit, and get there eventually at the end. So some of the like photo sessions, from like video, when I've done like 1,000 photos, it took me 2 weeks to actually go through, choose the photos, just a little bit redesign them so they look a little bit more like professional and more like artistic as well. And of course, I'd like to show this, and I cannot wait to share. And yes, I think it's really nice idea, and we are talking about this, and I'm sure it will come along.
It's nice to do things like that, and you're right. Like a photo book would be really cool. Yola's got some great pictures from. I don't know if it would be like a journey of the third album, or if it was like maybe of the trilogy, because all three albums go together. The Persistence of Memory is not a concept album per se, but it's conceptually linked, and it did lead to the idea for the second album, and obviously the second and third album are actually explicitly linked. So maybe to have a book of the whole journey, because obviously we've got some great shots from the hills of Italy. Where we recorded was in the hills of Parma, very beautiful kind of town in the middle of a valley. and we've got these kind of great shots, not only of the band recording and all the stuff we were doing in the studio, but we got the shots, you know, looking out across the mountains. The first time we recorded was in December, so everything was swathed in mist and it was really eerie. And then the second time we went back there and it was like 35 degrees and it was blazing sunshine, totally different take on it. But of course, you know, that I think that kind of atmosphere fed into the music both times around. And so some shots from across all of the recording we've done and the experiences we've had would be really special.
You know, especially that we spent there like nearly a month, you know, so it was like we took holidays and that was our holidays there. We went to record. So the whole atmosphere which was there, you know, we were just there to make music, you know, and enjoy the space, you know, and people and culture, just everything. It was really interesting, you know, and I'm glad we were able to do this. It was an amazing experience, and really every band, if they can, they should do something like that, you know, because it's just unforgettable, you know. And yeah, maybe putting something like this together would be a good idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Cool. Just wait until see if we've got any questions for people. If anybody's got a question, ask away. So while we wait, let's get back into basically the last question. Have you got any advice for people who want to become a musician?
Run away. I think, well, I can. It really does depend on why you want to become a musician, I suppose. And for me, the most important advice I can give is the same advice that I've been given various times throughout sort of my time in Final Coil, which is first and foremost, make sure that you do what moves you, because you can't predict what other people are going to like. It doesn't matter how much you try and conform to a genre. It doesn't matter how much you try and conform to a production style. Audiences are fickle, and they can take to something that is amazingly mediocre, and they can hate something that is absolutely technically and musically wonderful, and you'll never know why. So you have to do what we do first and foremost for yourself, because it costs a lot of time, it costs a lot of money, and it can be very emotionally challenging. But if you enjoy it, it doesn't matter. And I mean, that's for us, you know, with Persistence and Memory, and with the World We Left Behind Brothers, with the albums that we've got coming out, the time, the money, it doesn't matter at all to us, because we had this amazing experience recording. We got to work with people that we respected and who had real talent. We got to create the music that we wanted to listen to. And at the end of the day, if we sold one CD or no CDs or 1,000 CDs, it never mattered to us. The fact that people did kind of get behind both Persistence and Memory and the World Left Behind Brothers is, you know, we are immensely grateful for. And it's a bonus for sure when people, you know, when you get that nice review, or when you get an interview like this, you know, it's a wonderful thing, and it's hugely appreciated. But first and foremost, you've got to be that little bit selfish, and you've got to do it for you. And that way, however it goes, whatever you do, you're always going to have something that you can take pride in and you can look back on. And I think that's really important. You know, I will always look back on the experiences of making those records, and I'll always listen to those records, and I'll hear the person that I was at that time. I'll hear the emotions that I had at that time, and I'll be proud of what we achieved, because nothing about it was kind of coerced or forced or in any way kind of like there to appeal to a specific type of person. So that's my absolute piece of advice. However technically minded you are, or whatever else, do you know, make music for yourself and enjoy the process of making music, and that way it will always be a source of joy and pride to you. But you know, if you come at it with the mindset of you need to be successful in like either materially or critically, then I think that it's a path to disappointment. But yeah, that's my take on it. What do you think?
Advice to go. Well, yes, it definitely takes a lot of time, you know, and it takes a lot of effort as well. And you know, if you want to be heard, you know, and if you want people actually to be able to explore your music, you need to invest in this, you know, obviously financially as well. But as Philip said, you know, you definitely need to enjoy this for yourself. You know, there is no point of wasting your time, you know, your life doing something which, you know, it's for popularity, for example, you know, or just to be admired by someone. Yeah, I don't think it is worth, you know. I think life is too short to actually do this that way.
But, you know, from a practical perspective, I suppose the advice that we could give as well is just always be kind of prepared to put the effort in to make sure that whatever comes out under your kind of banner is, you know, the best you can possibly do. And we've always we always felt that we'd rather put out less material, but make sure that material was the strongest we could make it. And certainly over the period of this this lockdown, we've really focused. We haven't done a lot. We did a couple of tracks which were for a live stream for our good friends at Fusion. Steve Gold's fantastic guy, and he put on this this virtual festival while the lockdown was going on. And to be honest, we did that as much for him as we did for ourselves, because he's such a lovely guy, and he gave us the opportunity to play the one we left behind for others in full at the real festival the year before. So we spent a lot of time creating those two tracks, because we didn't want to just, you know, put on an acoustic guitar and play. And don't get me wrong, you know, there are people out there who do a fantastic job, you know, just with an acoustic and a camera, and I admire that. But for us, you know, we really wanted to make something a little bit kind of special for Steve and for the festival, and I'm glad we did, because when we watched the whole thing, the quality that was there of all the acts was absolutely astonishing. They were all very different in terms of the approach they'd taken and the genres they had, but the quality was absolutely superlative.
Yeah,
and
for us it was like really good kind of exercise and challenge as well, you know, because we had to try new kind of parts of the our recording studio upstairs, you know, in our room, and try to mix and master this later on as well, so it sounds really good. But of course, you know, we don't have millions, you know, so we kind of can only do what we can, but yeah, we're trying the best.
So yeah, so I think that's a good, you know, that's the other side of it, is, you know, do it because you enjoy it, but also take the time, make sure that what goes out under your name is something that you are proud of, because the internet is an unforgiving master, and once it's out there, it's out there forever. You know, there's always someone who's copied the live stream, or who remembers, oh, you did that on that day. It's like, oh, damn it. Like I'm sure that the person who kindly filmed me falling over on stage has got that footage just ready for release one day. But there we go. But yeah, you know, do it because you love it, and then you know, when you've got that kind of passion, make sure that what you put out there is, you know, it's something that you can look back on and always be proud of. And I think, you know, if you can do that, everything else will kind of fall into place. You may get popular, you may not, you may sell 1 million, you may sell 1, and that's to your mum, but that's fine, you know, as long as your mum enjoys it.
Yeah. We've got a question from not only my nephew, but he's also my mod. He says, it's from Sam. When you recorded the first 2 albums, it was in Italy. Was it just in Italy, or it says, was it just Italy that you went to take the photos and record the music videos?
No. We recorded the first 2 albums in Italy, and there were a lot of photos taken throughout that period. Actually, the first album, it was recorded in Italy, and then it was mastered in Switzerland, I think. Can't remember. Mastered. No, Scandinavia. Somewhere in Scandinavia, not Switzerland at all. There goes my geography. But yeah, we weren't present for that. So yeah, the whole process of going to Italy was very much just for the recording, and we got some great pictures there. But the actual music videos that we did for Persistence and Memory were done here in England. The first one, for You Waste My Time, was done actually where Yola works. It was done in the workshop of her garden centre, and it was done on a bank holiday. And all the customers walking around the garden centre that day got to listen to You Waste My Time being played at life-threatening volumes from about 2 o'clock in the afternoon till closing time. And I'm sure that at least some of them will have gone home humming that song. And then the second video we did, which was in Silent Reproach, we did in a kind of lock-up studio in Melton Mowbray. And then, yeah, the second album, same sort of principle. We went out there, we recorded the album in Italy. We got some great pictures. The second album was actually a bit more exciting because Richard and I, guitarist Richard and I, drove from England to Italy. So we drove, we camped in the Alps because we didn't want to, leave our gear in the car while we were, in a hotel. So we camped in the Alps and then drove down into Italy the next day. And we got some great kind of pictures from that and some great experiences on the road as well, and a little bit of wine. Then again, we came back to the UK and we did the music videos it was an abandoned World War I army base. It's now used largely for kind of paintball type stuff, but it's an old World War I ammunition base. It's an amazing location, and we've actually done 3 videos there in total, but we've tried to make each one look very different, because the advantage of it is you can dress it up however you want, because it's so dilapidated. You can basically create the space yourself. And they don't mind if you get a little bit happy with staple guns and paint and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, the Italy thing was very much about the recording only, and then obviously we've done a lot of stuff here in the UK as well. A lot of the videos and the photo shoots we did. Both of the photo shoots were done by someone called Esther Segarra, who's an absolute legend. She's shot Catatonia and Paradise Lost and Mayhem and Ghost, yeah. So she basically has shot most of our heroes at one time or another, and she very kindly agreed to do the photo shoot for us, and we did that down in London. It was really interesting because she said, "Oh, what kind of image you're looking for?" So I thought, well, I'll send her over a few photos, from internet, from Google, just kind of searching for bands, and I thought, well, that sort of kind of music, and maybe something like this, So we sent her those photos. She said, "Oh, actually, I've done those photos, and I know where. Do you want to do this?" And I said, "Yeah, of course we want." It was like such a coincidence, because you're looking at like 1 in a million kind of chances, and I never thought about, for a second. And then she said, "I know exactly where those photos were." So we thought, well, let's just try this. So let's just do this then. So that was really, really interesting, because it was like first our like proper like professional photo session. We weren't sure really what to expect there, but it was definitely worth going and doing. And I think it came out really, really well actually. So. And she was like the coolest, most down to earth person in the world, because obviously you're a little bit stressed, a little bit nervous, how you will come across, if that's okay or this, But actually, everything went really smooth and really chilled out, and working with her was just a pleasure, to be honest. Yeah. So I hope that answered the question, Sam. Sorry, it's probably a longer answer than you're used to, but if you get to know us, you probably realise that any question gets answered with about 1,000 syllables. So there you go.
Yeah, he did say that. He says that's so cool with the army base. So he actually loved the answer. So I think, unless anybody's got any more questions, I think that might be about it. But before we go, before we sign off, where can people find Final Coil? Have you got a website, Facebook, Twitter, stuff like that?
Well, as is required in the modern day, we are everywhere. I'm not literally everywhere. You're not going to find us on your toilet paper, not yet. But we have an official website, which is www.finalcoil.com. So easy to remember, I hope. We've got Twitter, which is just twitter.com with the /Final Coil. Same with Facebook, same with Instagram. And YouTube is youtube.com Final Coil Official. I'm not quite sure why that had to happen, but it was being twitchy on the day they were handing out names. So yeah, you can find us on all those places. You can buy our CDs through Bandcamp, which is finalcoilrock.bandcamp.com. If you don't remember that, don't worry. If you Google us, it will pop up. We're also on SoundCloud. We're on Amazon, iTunes. what are the other?
Spotify.
Yeah, Spotify. That's the one.
That's
What
the
the
one,
devil
yeah.
do these young people call it these days? Spotify. That's it. Yes. Deezer, which I've never used, but I'm sure it's wonderful. And pretty much every other kind of streaming service that you can name. So yeah, we are depressingly easy to find. In fact, even if you don't want to find us, you may find us by accident.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this interview. It's very much appreciated. So thank you, guys.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us on your great show. It's really nice to get a chance to actually sort of speak to you one-to-one, because obviously you've been very kind, and you've played our stuff quite a few times, I think, now, and it's always really appreciated. So thank you for having us. Thank you for putting up with our endless blather, and hopefully you enjoyed it.
Yeah, yes, most certainly have. Yeah, thank you. Like I said, thank you so much. Thank you so much again. So, yeah.